I can start. Yeah. Okay.
Good morning. Please allow me to stand on existing protocols. On behalf of the Ministry of Public Service, it is a profound honor to deliver this opening presentation at the third edition of the National Dialogue convened under the auspices of the Office of the President as part of our national reflections marking independence. The dialogue stands as a testament to our collective commitment to inclusive governance and participatory development. It brings together distinguished cross-section of stakeholders, public servants, private sector members, civil society organizers, actors, development partners, youth representatives, and thought leaders to deliberate on strategic choices that will shape our national trajectory. The theme of this year's dialogue, harnessing the Gambia's human capital and infrastructural resources for inclusive leap to prosperity, is both timely and visionary. It underscores a fundamental truth that for us to achieve sustainable development, our infrastructural development must be supported by the strength of our people, the effectiveness of our institutions, and the quality of partnerships that transform national potential into measurable outcomes. Ladies and gentlemen, this presentation seeks to frame our deliberations and provides strategic context for the 5 panel discussions that will follow. Therefore, allow me to briefly explore on each of these topics that will be discussed here today. Topic number 1, exploring homegrown youthful employment for inclusive prosperity. This panel will seek to examine the role of young people as architects of national transformation. The Gambia's youthful demographic profile represents one of our most significant strategic assets. However, the realization of this demographic dividend requires deliberate and sustained investment in 1, market-relevant skills development, entrepreneurship, and innovation. Seamless pathways from education and training to dignified employment. Support mechanism for youth-led enterprises and creative industries. Civic engagement platforms that nurture leadership and responsive citizenship. We must decisively beyond perceiving young people as passive beneficiaries of policy. Instead, they must be seen or recognized and empowered as equal partners in national development. And I think the performance that was given here, that performance clearly underscored the importance of recognizing the youths as partners in development, which we need to push forward. Then the second topic, that is partnership in harnessing human capital and infrastructure. Inclusive prosperity cannot be achieved by government alone. It demands structured and strategic collaboration across sectors. Effective partnership must unite government ministries, departments, and agencies, the private sector and investment community, civil society and community-based organizations, development partners, and regional institutions. Such collaborations enable resource mobilization, policy coherence, knowledge exchange, and coordinated implementation. Importantly, it ensures that infrastructure investment, whether in transport, energy, water, health, or education, translate directly into productivity gains, employment creation, and improved service delivery. This will be followed by our third topic, which is on youth as drivers of economic growth, strengthening the informal workforce. The informal sector remains a cornerstone of the Gambia's economy and a primary source of livelihood, particularly for the women and youth. Transforming this sector into a stronger engine of growth requires expanding access to finance and market linkages, structured skills, upgrading and certification pathways, strengthen regulatory frameworks that balance formalization with protection of livelihoods, enhance social protection mechanisms. Our objective must be to empower informal workers while fostering productivity, resilience, and pathways towards formal economic participation. Fourth, digitalization as a catalyst for inclusive development. Digital transformation is shaping governance, commerce, and citizen engagement across the world. For the Gambia, digitalization represents both an opportunity and an imperative. To fully harness its potential, we must prioritize expansion of digital infrastructure and nationwide connectivity, development of digital competencies across public and private sector, deployment of technology to enhance efficiency, transparency, and accessibility in public service delivery, support for innovation, ecosystems, and ICT entrepreneurship. Digitalization is not merely technological upgrade. It is a governance reform, a productivity strategy, and a vehicle for social inclusion. The fifth and last subtopic of our team will focus on fighting corruption as a foundation for sustainable prosperity. We must recognize that no development agenda can succeed without integrity and accountability. Strengthening governance requires robust and transparent financial management systems, independent and effective oversight institutions, active citizen participation and civic responsibility, consistent enforcement of anti-corruption laws and frameworks. The fight against corruption is therefore not only a legal or ethical obligation, it is a development imperative. Every dollar not optimally utilized undermines public trust and diverts resources from national priorities. Ladies and gentlemen, as we transition to the panel discussions, allow me to propose 3 cross-cutting principles to guide our engagements. 1, people at the center. Human capital remains our most valuable and renewable resources. The foundation of our transformation lies in harnessing this resource. We are blessed with a youthful and dynamic population, a growing professional class, an enterprising private sector, and resilient communities with immense potential. The demographic dividend presents a historic opportunity, one that must be deliberately nurtured, organized, and effectively managed. Then, two, we need to make sure that we work on institutions that deliver. Effective governance determines the impact of policies and investment. A capable and professional civil service is essential to designing sound public policies, deliver efficient and equitable public services, manage public resources responsibly, and coordinate national development efforts effectively. Then the third that I want us to bear in mind is partnerships that scale impact. Collaboration is indispensable to sustainable national transformation. This dialogue must move beyond reflection to call for action. Our objective is to identify concrete, actionable pathways, policies, programs, and reforms, as well as partnerships that will move the Gambia decisively from potential to sustainable prosperity. Let our deliberations be candid, forward-looking, and solution-oriented. Let them challenge assumptions, stimulate innovations, and strengthen our shared resolves to build a more inclusive, resilient, and prosperous nation. I thank you for your attention and wish us productivity.
Thank you, PS, for giving us the stencil to guide the discussions, impressive benchmark on what we should assess a candid and forward-looking discussions that explains it all. I would now like to invite the Honorable Minister of Communication and Digital Economy to guide us through. Honorables. Yeah. Thank you.
Good morning to everybody. I take this opportunity to also stand on the existing protocols and thank you all for coming and thank for this very wonderful topic of the day, a topic that is too close to our office, too close to the government, and too close to the people of this country. But maybe before we delve into where we think the discussions could possibly center on, I think it's important we ask ourselves three very important questions. It will be provocative, but I think it's important to ask those questions. Almost 50 years ago, 25 years ago, the very concept of a state, what is a state or what is Gambia? The constitutionalists would tell you it is a geographical entity with people, organized government, and having a sovereignty deciding for themselves what they want, those people. That is the concept of a state. But that very concept has changed with the evolution of technology, especially digital technology. Because technology itself now changes that very concept of a state. For smaller states, in fact, it's an opportunity for us. Because today, the size of your country is not only measured by the land mass you have with the rivers and the sea, but it's measured by the digital space you occupy as a country. And that digital space, that's where the competition today is. That's where the scramble is. Look across Africa and look around the coastal sides or zones of Africa. There are so many submarine cables that are being laid down. Who owns them? Who runs them? Who benefits from them? Who controls them? Terrestrially is an expansion of a state in that form. But of course, let's look at the space. Low orbit satellite service provision is on. There is that competition to create connectivity and access. You want to create it? You have your signals all over the world. Give them that opportunity. Create the access for them. And you call it connectivity. Beyond that, what is happening? It's just an extension of that digital space by nations who really want to roll out and expand the scope of what they call their state. Can we do that as a country? That's the first question. Second, that would be very provoking. When we were younger going to school, for some of our colleagues who have studied economics, they asked them the question, what is production? What are the factors of production? Those factors of production, we were told, is land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Today, that definition is not correct. It's changing. Why? Technology. One of the key important factors of production, obviously, the land may be there, labor may be there, capital may be there, entrepreneurship may be there, but without technology, especially today, digital technology, there will be no production. So in other words, the concept of a state is changing, and our very basis of production as a factor, digital technology, is equally changing that concept of production. If you understand the two differences now, if we do and accept as that's the reality, what must we do as a state? What should be our focus areas? What should be the priorities? I think that's very important. Because if we get the priorities right, then we have the power. But today, that is the third provocation I want to set before rolling out a few things here. Concept of power is equally not determined by the size of the country, but your commitment as they define power itself, in recognizing that you are a people who are organized, ready to work for economic rebirth. That's the very essence. P-O-E-E-R. People, organized, working for economic rebirth. How organized are we? How can we work as a people? And what economic rebirth are we looking at through the very concept of digitization and digitalization? I think it's very important I state these things and then making reference to the last year's report that you have just given us. When I just perused it, I looked at page 12 of it. Those are the priority impact, high impact models you mentioned. Go through each of them on that page 12. You will realize that almost every element and aspect of it, you can get them right by using digitalization. But also, I am reminded within the same document, page 18, where it made reference to chapter 20, section 220 of the Constitution, on directive principles of state policy. See, the difference here is they will tell you they are not fundamental human rights. They are not, for say, absolute strict obligations. But as nations develop, they turn into human rights and fundamental human rights. The more advanced you are, the lesser you see them as directive principles of state policy, but then you don't see them as these are obligations we must and we shall. One classical example is if you go to Finland today, connectivity, internet, is a fundamental human right. In our countries here today, we just want to create that access. I think it is important I lay out this as I move into what I just want to state. So in effect, what I'm saying, if we are to be ready for that digitalization and getting the right human capital to harness for inclusivity, each of us should be ready, what a philosopher, Socrates, said, to put ourselves in a position where everybody will be commanding everybody, each in his or her turn, all. That's the concept of digitization. But of course, having said this, one will ask me then, what is the principal approach by the government of the day? Of course, we are mindful of the need to enhance human capital, improve public service delivery. I'm happy the public service minister is here. Boost economic growth and ensure no one is left behind. Those are some of the key targets. But how are we going to do that vis-a-vis human capital development and ensuring there is economic growth and inclusivity? Of course, we have what we call human capital development strategy through ICTs. It's already there. We are also looking at, for inclusivity, women and youth empowerment strategy through ICTs. We have the strategy document as well. But then having those things reminds us that there is a need to look at a few factors that would help us create what we call digital economy. Let's remember, and I want to say this thing with aplomb. Today in this country, if we are generating very close to $26 billion as our collectibles, I am saying, and I want to be recorded, that if we get our equations right and make so everybody is part of this process of digitization, include them in all the economic activities, we can increase our these collectibles to more than $1 billion collectibles per year. And it's not an option, because technology adoption is no man adoption. We don't have the time to say gradual or gradualism. It doesn't work that way. We have to move with speed. And to do that, we recognize data-driven value creation. Everything is becoming data. But may I say to that, I'm just trying to say what a digital economy represents, and I'll tell you what we need to do on that, human capital development. Because it's going to be informing our approaches to human capital development. Look at ourselves, we ask ourselves, everybody is online every day. But that data we are having, what is it contributing to ourselves as a people and as an economic unit or a zone? 80% of that data is not us. It's not local content. The value, in fact, is not us. It's for other people. Go on WhatsApp, other social media groupings. What are we creating? So the data we're talking about is data that can be monetized, that can be of value to you, each of us, and value to the state, almost all the organs of the state. So that is one focus area. Then hyperconnectivity is key, because you need the capital, but equal human capital within that area. I'll be very specific when I come to that within 2 minutes, please. That hyperconnectivity means you're looking at the 3 or 4 layer zones. You look today in the Gambia, just like other countries. You need 3, 4 layers to get that connectivity. You need effective submarine cable system that would link this country to the rest of the world. Once the submarine cable is in the country, you also need internal connectivity, which is the national backbone. And then from the national backbone point, you also need the last mile, the fiber that gets you connected. And above that, you may think of aerial side, which is satellite and the like. But how far have we gone? What have we done so far? We have only one submarine cable that connects this country to the rest of the world. The standard is try to get at least 3. This is a challenge. Government is trying very well to establish the second one. And the estimates of that, we are looking at the ranges of between $25 to $40 million. Internal connectivity, that's the national backbone. At least, glad to say the entire country is now networked. We have the ECOWAN network that covers the entire country. Last mile could be the challenge, which we are equally addressing. So that hyperconnectivity is key, whereby the connectivity is always on. You look at the mobile phones, smartphones. How do you make sure that everybody gets them? Internet of Things. This requires heavy investment. Thirdly, the platform models. What platforms are we talking about? Digital platforms, market platforms, payment gateways. All these things need to be integrated. But people have to do that, and they need that capacity. If we cannot create a platform economy, then we will be wasting our time as a people. Our digital space will be occupied. And then today, what is relevant is the bigger space you have, the bigger your country. And we can do it as a country. We're also looking at the 4th factor, which is digitization of assets and services, which is you turn physical goods into digital assets. E-government is priority, and digital currency. But let me go back to the digital currency part first. For digital currency, let's ask ourselves, what is the cost of printing this paper we are calling money? It's a lot of money. Countries are now trying to do away with it. Central bankers would tell me it's very expensive. So we need to target that to make sure that you have that digital money which can move from one place to the other easily. E-government, you don't have to go and queue anywhere. In fact, for your information, we just launched the gov.gm for government services. Go there and ask for any service. We'll be promoting it more. And then the 5th one is remember now in those days, you have producers and you have consumers. In a digital environment, the fine line between the consumer and the producer is blurring. In other words, that concept of all command, each in his turn, all is coming back, because the same producer now can become the consumer. Why am I saying that? I'm saying that because if you look at those days, the burden is on the government to create jobs. With the early stages of digitization, we say now, okay, we can create these jobs through PPP partnerships. But honestly, let me be frank with you. With AI as a technology and a tool, today, it is the responsibility of every individual to create a job for yourself. That's the trend. Government will facilitate. Partnerships can facilitate. But your relevance in that space, the capacity you need in that space, is very much dependent on you as a person who is ready to look at what you can do and how can you get yourself employed. So we're looking at that dimension as well. And the seventh one is the intellectual capital over physical labor. In this area, we look at cognitive skills, coding and digital literacy, interoperability of different systems. But now I have just started entering into the human capital part. Now, the government is simply saying, from day one as a child, there is a need to change that educational system and the curriculum. We have no option. We are going to a stage where you just don't have to be a master in Microsoft to be employed in this country. If we really want to lead the pace or be the pace setter, as a country, everybody, we must get rid of the notion of born before computer. Everybody should be able to learn and understand how to operate this particular magnificent tool, which is the computing systems. And we can do it. Others have done it. I remember when I was just pushing one of the master's programs, I was in the same class with some Chinese ladies. Honestly, they were all older than me, 20-something years ago, and they were at the age of almost 65 to 70, that's the range. The learning, management of communications, operational communications, network, how to set it up, how to audit it. And I asked them the question, why are you doing it? At that age, almost retirement? And the answer is, that's a funny answer. It helps them to sleep better in their graves. It means a lot. So it's the responsibility of everybody to make sure that we have that as a system in place. And then we embrace them. But of course, one would ask me, as we take the steps to create that digital economy, especially focusing on, because it says human capital and infrastructure resources. As far as we are concerned in that digital space, human capital itself is a resource in itself, it's infrastructure. That is why it's too relevant to us as a ministry, as a sector, and more importantly, to the government as representative of the people. So we need to have that digital foundations, physical and regulatory ones. Countries have done it in the past, where they focus on policy and regulation for 5 years. Then they go into institution building for another 5 years. Then they look at the infrastructure for another 5 years, and they equally look at the services and applications for another 5 years. Unfortunately, some 15 years ago or 17 years ago, we partially missed that opportunity. So it's a responsibility now to put all together policy, regulations, infrastructure itself, institutions, services. You define them, service terms and applications that we are using. So that foundational digital foundation is something we are just grappling with. And then we build human capital and the digital skills. Basic digital skills is all over in this country. But we are slightly shifting to advanced ICT training, specialists in coding, data analytics, and cybersecurity. We are doing a lot of that in the ministry, within the government and outside the government. Sent many people for trainings. And more importantly, on digital entrepreneurship. What have we done as a ministry, for example, last year alone? We have this beautiful concept of We Elevate as a project. And what have we done? We know in this country, more than 50% represent who? Women. If you look at our SMEs in this country, more than the same number is women. We need to give them the capacity. They need to do the trade. We identified a good number of them, almost 111. Brought them, trained them, gave them something to start their businesses, particularly to fill their presence online. Even if you want to import something from China, we are saying you don't have to pay for an air ticket to go. Save that cost. It will be good for us because you don't need to go there. Get those goods on here through using that online application. A good number of them are benefiting from that project. So that is to make sure that the gap is not there, which we recognize as a ministry. But of course, we also understand what you call whole of a government approach. That is the strategy. Centralized leadership. Like he said, whatever we do here, we look at the people. So we're simply saying, as a ministry and as a government, there are plethora of applications and software development in this country. On the government side, on the private sector side. But please allow me 2 minutes to really dwell into this. I think it's important. You go to the Ministry of Agriculture, a different application. You go to health, something different. You go to youth, something different. You go to environment, completely different applications being developed here and there. Some of the APIs are not with us. We need to integrate to make sure that one application can fit for all, or whatever we use, that integration is there. It will save us cost. But to do that, we created what we call the Gambia Information Technology Agency, GICTA, whose Director General presently is here in the crowd. For every government project that you want to start, which is ICT-oriented, network or software applications and the like, you must get a specific clearance from that GICTA. We could look at the specifics of the application itself or the software, the network you want to deploy, its impact on governance and on the people before you could proceed with it. So that whole of the government strategy is there, and we think it is key. Service digitization, public service. We've already started it. And this government wants to make sure that. And I want you to quote me for this as well. By the end of this 2026, once we launch the MyGov, and I'm happy that the Public Service Minister is here, who is in charge of that process, we will be able to provide to you not less than, for the beginning, 1,000 government services online. I am saying this. It's a target. You don't have to leave your village in Basse or Kato to really request for anything. This will really kill down or bring down those understandings or statements of maybe delays or corruptions and the like, because digitization really can clean a lot of those suspicions. So that whole of government approach is key. We also want to look at how do we foster innovation using the same capital we need to create human capital. One of the key challenges we have is access to finance. Honestly, most of these ladies, women, young women starting business, what do? There are challenges that access to finance. We want to come up with innovative measures to make sure that that is there. And lastly, our approach to regulation. Because you will realize that every time there is a rift between the public and the private sector, one wants to do this, they stop you, and then there are a lot of delays. We are looking at measures, how can we really create those regulatory sandboxes? And lastly, digitization and inclusive safeguards ecosystem that the government is clearly looking at. In other words, our Human Capital Development Strategy 2024, we've already passed through it. We are looking at it again to look at areas that need to be captured. We have identified targeted training for youth and women and capacity building for public servants. A day will come, and very soon. Don't ask me, is it next 5 years? No. Don't ask me, is it in the next 3 years? No. If you cannot show yourself as digital, it will be a challenge for you to work in the public service. I'm not saying you won't work there, but it will be a challenge for you because you must read and understand. In other words, in conclusion, for us to really be where we want to go to as a nation, we should all be ready to embrace the needs of capacity building, especially in the digital space. And that human capital we need to really improve more on it. It's very costly, it's not cheap, but we are ready to have it done. To this I say, without the digital economy, we can't survive as a nation. We don't have an option. Nobody has any option. We should be ready to be there. And everybody would one day be the expert for this economy that we want to create for all of us. The bigger the Gambia becomes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Lamin Jabi, Minister for Communication and Digital Economy. Indeed, you've provoked some thought-provoking issues, that the concept of nation states, according to the 1933 Montevideo Convention, is something that we should re-examine. And AI is coming. There's worry that AI can replace all of us if we don't upskill. One interesting anecdote I would like to say, when I was doing my master's in Scotland, Chinese were the largest number of students. When you chat with them, what they say they'll be going back. At the same time, there were pictures of Africans, coming to Spain, occupying the asylum camps. Most of them wanted to stay. I was looking at that. That is quite interesting. All these foreign students in the university, they came purposely to acquire the knowledge and move and go and develop. While for our own part of the world, they are escaping. So it's something that made me think. And then this adage about, lifelong learning is something that is quite interesting. And we'd like to move to the breakout sessions. Here, I would like to hand over to my colleague, Miss Aissatou Keita, Chairperson of the National Dialogue Coordinating Committee 2026, to take over and then moderate the next sessions, which are reflections by Ms. Keita. Welcome.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Sankanu, and thank you for moderating the first part of today's session. I've been actually listening keenly to the deliberations and looking at it, 61 years to where we are now raises so many questions. Yes, we've actually raised the flag, but still so many questions as to how far have we gone as a country to realize the needs and aspirations of the citizenry. And taking cue from what has been mentioned here by the different speakers points out to one important thing, that is to achieve the needs and aspirations of the citizenry, it's collective. And to take cue from the Honorable Minister's statement points out on the same issues again. He made mention critical points, and at some point I was like, oh, the minister is actually taking time. But at some point I was like, no, I think he needs to keep talking, because there were so many things that he was taking note of. And one amongst the things that he mentioned to me, it actually caught my attention. Most of the times we talk about issues of strategies, but he said, having strategies alone is not enough. We must also address the enabling factors necessary to build a thriving digital economy, which is reliable infrastructure, affordable connectivity, digital literacy, cybersecurity frameworks, regulatory clarity, innovation ecosystems, and access to finance for tech-driven enterprises. These are very important issues. And I think from his statement, we could actually come up with so many reflective things, but it's not for me to actually delve into. So now for the reflective sessions, for us to be able to have on what the Honorable Minister says and to get into the nitty-gritties of his statement on the digitalization in harnessing the Gambia's human and resource potential for inclusive prosperity, I would like to invite Ms. Kodu Aliu Jeng of Wisdom, as well as Professor Nazma Toyin Sarudin Bakinde, the Vice Chancellor of USET, to get us through this, when later we're inviting you to the podium, please. Join us. A round of applause. After which we'll also hand over to the audience to actually listen to your various perspectives on this particular, topic. Your deliberations will take you from the Honorable Minister's statement, and then from that we will hand over to the audience to share in questions or recommendations or whatever that they are coming on. I'll start with you. Thank you.
I will start on existing protocols. I believe after the Honorable Minister's speech, I don't think there's anything that I need to add to that. He has touched on all the points that I want to discuss. But on one point that I want us to discuss today is our youth. The Gambia has 65% of our population as youth, and over the past few years, I have interacted with them in different circumstances. And I realized that most of these students don't have the right skill sets to participate in the digital world.
Kodu, I'll actually put a pause there. Would you like to just come to the podium? GRTS is live and they're not captured in that part of it. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, good morning once again. The Gambia is a nation of in demographic terms, has a youthful population. And we are also a country with agricultural land, a strategic coastal location, and strong regional trade linkages. And yet, these advantages, many young people remain unemployed. I think from the earlier, the lady who gave the speech earlier this morning, she mentioned that most of the complaints they receive was on unemployment. And many of our resources remain under-optimized. This tells us that potential alone is not sufficient. What we require are systems, structures, and direct our strength towards measurable outcomes. Digitalization provides such systems. It enables us to convert our demographic advantage and natural resources into productivity, competitiveness, and national growth. Our human capital is our most powerful national asset. In the Gambia, where a majority of our population are under the age of 30, the question is not whether we have talent, but whether the talent is equipped with the modern economy. Today, global economy rewards digital competence, the ability to work with data, use technology efficiently, and innovate through digital tools. If our young people are trained only for traditional roles without digital literacy, we limit their productivity and global competitiveness. Okay. And global competitiveness. However, if our education system integrates computational thinking, coding, and digital entrepreneurship, like the minister just mentioned, applied STEM skills, we increase our economic value of our workforce. A digitally skilled Gambian youth population can create startups, improve public systems, support agricultural innovation, and participate in global digital markets, even within our borders. Digitalization also has direct implication on how we manage our key sectors. agriculture remains one of our largest sources of livelihood in the Gambia. By integrating digital tools such as climate data, market price information, and mobile advisory platforms, farmers can make better planning decisions and reduce uncertainty. In trade and export, digital tracking systems can improve transparency, strengthen confidence, and international partners. Within government, integrated databases can reduce administrative delays, improve service delivery, and enhance accountability. Technology does not replace farming, trade, or governance. Rather, it strengthens these sectors by improving efficiency, coordination, and reliability. And inclusion. Inclusive prosperity is particularly important in the Gambia, where economic opportunities are often concentrated in urban areas. When participation in financial service, business registration, and government processes require physical presence in specific location, rural populations are disadvantaged. Digital platforms can reduce these barriers. Mobile banking, electronic identification systems, and online service portals allow citizens in rural communities to participate more actively in national economy. Digitalization can also empower women and young entrepreneurs by lowering entry barriers to markets and finance. By widening access to service and opportunities, digital systems can ensure that prosperity is not limited to few, but shared across regions and communities. And the next thing is we need to align. Given the size of the Gambia, integration across sectors is not only possible, but practical. Our institutions are manageable in scale, which creates opportunity for coordination and digital systems. Education data can inform workforce planning. Agricultural information can be linked to financial institutions to support credit access. Government ministries, like the minister just said, can share interoperable databases to reduce duplication and improve service delivery. The challenge is not to scale, it's to align. Skills development, resource management, and institutional processes must operate within a compatible digital framework. When systems communicate effectively, policy implementation becomes more coherent, and national development becomes more strategic. The Gambia's youth possesses energy, creativity, and resilience. Our resources provide the material base for growth. However, without direction, energy can become frustration, and resources can be underutilized. Digitalization offers service, structures, and direction. It allows us to channel our youthful innovation into productive sectors, connect rural producers to markets, and improve government efficiency. Prosperity does not happen by chance. It's a result of deliberate coordination of human talent and natural resources. By aligning our systems through digital transformation, the Gambia can move from potential to performance, aspiration to measurable inclusive growth. And finally, the opportunity before us is clear. The Gambia has human capital, the geographic position, and the ambition to transform the future. What is required is deliberate action. I urge government institutions to prioritize to coordinate digital policies and interoperable systems. I encourage the private sector to invest in digital innovations and skills development. I call upon educators to integrate practical competence in curricula at all levels. I encourage our young people to embrace technology, not merely as consumers, but as creators and problem solvers. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Kodo Aliu Jeng. She mentioned that there is human capital, there is also ambition. What is left is action, and government needs to intervene in terms of action that is needed. I'll now hand over to the Vice Chancellor of USET to give her deliberations.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I want to beg to stand on existing protocol. I want to start by appreciating my sister, Madam Amin, the DPPR. I feel greatly honored to be here this afternoon. I don't take this for granted. It is both an honor and privilege to join us at this third national dialogue as we reflect on the theme, harnessing the Gambians' high capital and infrastructural resources for an inclusive leap to prosperity. I am particularly delighted to speak on the sub-theme, digitalization in harnessing the Gambia's human capital and resource potential for inclusive prosperity. The declaration of National Dialogue Day as part of our independence celebration is visionary. It affirms that democracy is not merely about elections, it is about continuous engagement, accountability, and collective responsibility. It is about sitting together beyond political or regional lines to shape the destiny of our nation through mature and constructive discourse. What is digitalization? It's often spoken about to be about technology, but for the Gambia, digitalization must first and foremost be about our people, how we prepare them, empower them, and deliberately include them in national development. We want to ensure that the women, the young women in Basel have access to online training in coding, enabling a farmer in Kuntar to receive real-time market prices through mobile platform, allowing a small business owner in Brikama to trade beyond borders through e-commerce, and equipping our public institutions to deliver services more efficiently, transparently, and accountably. In a country that is blessed with a youthful population, our greatest resource is not beneath the ground. It is within our people. Over 60% of our population, as has been rightly said by my sister, is under 25 years of age. If properly skilled, digitally empowered, this demographic reality becomes our strongest engine for prosperity. If neglected, it becomes a missed opportunity. When we speak of harnessing human capital for inclusive prosperity, the key question is simple but critical. Who gets left behind when our systems are digitalized? And how do we prevent that from happening? From my experience in higher education and institutional leadership, I have learned that digitalization works best. It works best when it is practical, accessible, and people-centered. First, education and skills empowerment must be prioritized. Digital tools are only as powerful as the people who use them. Beyond formal ICT training, we must invest in basic digital literacy for students, teachers, civil servants, artisans, and small business owners. When people can confidently navigate digital platforms, productivity improves, innovation grows and economic opportunities expand. Secondly, digital infrastructure must respond to everyday needs. Digitalization should simplify access to essential services such as education, healthcare, business registration, data management, and governance. Systems that are reliable, intuitive, and efficient reduce waste. They save time. And most importantly, they strengthen the trust between citizens, institutions, and our governments. Thirdly, inclusion must be intentional, not accidental. When we are intentional about something, we do it religiously. We must take this seriously. Women, young people, persons with disabilities, and the rural communities must not be passive recipients of digital transformation. No, they must be active participants as learners, innovators, and contributors. Affordable internet access, community-based digital hubs, and strong partnerships with educational institutions are practical ways to bridge the existing gaps. Fourthly and finally, collaboration is critical. We cannot do away with it. The government cannot do this alone. We have to be frank and be sincere with ourselves. Universities, the private sector, and civil society must work together. Universities in particular are not just training centers. They are innovation. They are innovation ecosystems where research can inform policy and produce solutions tailored to national needs. I can boldly and happily tell you that USET, which is the Gambian University of Applied Science, Engineering, and Technology, is set to play a role and provide a platform for this digitalization in the Gambia. What do I mean? We have what you call Unipod. This Unipod is an initiative that is built and equipped with modern equipment and tools by the United Nations Development Program. It is located at our Kanifing campus. It is a sight to behold. You need to be there. It will soon be commissioned. This Unipod is part of USET's strategic vision to enhance innovation, research, and entrepreneurship among our students. There is something that resonates in USET's the vision, the mission, and our core values. That is entrepreneurship mindset. So this entrepreneurship among our students, staff, and the community at large, that's the joy about it. This Unipod is not meant for USET only. It's for the whole Gambians. So the USET Unipod has units such as Design Lab, Sustainability Space, Creative Lab, Electronics/Artificial Intelligence, and Robotic Labs, Exhibition Space, Fabrication Workshop, Rapid Prototyping Lab, Woodwork Lab, and a studio for product development, prototyping, and collaborative research. In conclusion, digitalization is not about replacing people with technology. No. It is about equipping people with the right tools to unlock their potentials and enable the nation to grow in an inclusive and sustainable way. As we mark our 61st independence anniversary, may this dialogue not end as conversation alone. Let it translate into action, into policies implemented, partnerships forged, infrastructure expanded, and skills developed. The future of the Gambia will not be determined solely by our resources, but by how intelligently and inclusively we harness them. Let us therefore march forward, connected, innovative, and united towards a digitally empowered and prosperous nation. Jerejef, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that deliberation. And as she mentioned, these deliberations are as good as we discuss them, but it can never be fruitful if all we discuss doesn't end up being implemented. So I think we should take note of all of these things. And when she was starting, she said she wanted to stand on existing protocols. I didn't. I don't know whether it was because I was hungry. I didn't actually acknowledge anyone. But I also want to stand on existing protocols. Apologies. Sorry for saying it late, though. At this juncture, I'll hand over the mic to the audience to listen to your inputs. We'll just give you 10 minutes to listen to probably questions, comments, or anything that you want to throw in as per their discussion, and also from the Honorable Minister's deliberation.
There's one here.
Yes. So if you have anything, you might want to stand up, introduce yourself, your name, and then you give your inputs.
Yeah, there's one here. Lamin Sedi.
I'll say good afternoon to you all and feel honored to be around. My sincere gratitude to His Excellency, the President of the Republic of the Gambia. Hence, we are all sitting here to talk about the transformations and all these beautiful things we've been hearing about what is happening in our own homeland. Now, I have a lot to say, but I can probably contain myself about the...
Within 1 minute, you can just summarize.
That's exactly. So, Grace, opportunity to be able to elaborate a little bit more what the Honorable Minister is saying. I happen to be privileged and humbled that this field that I studied, technology, and I've been involved with various companies across the world, and I've also invested personally as privately on my own in technology across. Technology is very vital. Honorable Minister, I think we know each other over the past years in the field, and I think we're lucky as a nation to have him as Honorable Minister on digital. As we always say, people think digital economy is about connectivity. No, this is beyond that. Actually, it's about knowledge economy. He mentioned the idea of the platforms, which I'm in line with and I agreed. If you even look at the database itself, that in itself there are a lot of duplications. That's what you usually, biggest challenge is called what we call normalization, more or less to have different platform in order to represent an entity or in one country. I think this is a key area that we need to be looking at, and I will encourage him to particularly focus on those areas. You mentioned about implementation to transform these things to reality. I agree with you. When I first came back to the country, that was in 2010, I think we go to the ministry, you'll find my proposal, humble proposal, about the e-governance and all sorts of things as you speak. At the time, they were even trying to emulate the smart technology from Egypt to this country, and I told you that technology is jealously guarded by the people who implement. We have smart people, we have Gambians, let's find a way and do our own, but no way they're going to give and transfer all their knowledge to us. And up to date, I think Honorable Minister will confirm it's not happening. Now, when we talk about technology, I think I alluded to my respectful VC, who I work with on TVET centers almost on a daily basis. People tend to see as a threat. Technology is not a threat. Basically, what are we talking today? We're talking about three things: communication, storage, and what else? Security, when you come to technology. Now, how you utilize that is entirely about your individual participation and capacity on what you want to. You can do good with it, you can turn out and do bad with it as you probably wish. The humble experience I do have here is mostly people tend to be in the field, but they do not know how it works. So unfortunately, lack of that knowledge, they become victim of their own. We've seen a lot of that here. People exposing themselves and a lot of things. There's a lot more to go on this, but I will probably stop because I'm limited to the time here. I wish I could have done a little more, and I thank you all.
You went beyond the 1 minute I allocated. Thank you, nonetheless, thank you. Do we have, yes, we have several hands around this end. Yes. Over there. Okay. It's fine. Yeah, you can hand it over. Let's summarize a bit, please.
Yeah. Good afternoon. I am Honorable Musa Ba, National Youth Parliamentarian for Upper Salem constituency. Here I have questions of 3, but I may just be due to time factor. I will just, discard 1 and then left with 2 questions. 1, what concrete policies are government implementing to address youth unemployment, especially for graduate of vocational and tertiary institutions? Then my other question is, how is government, this question is going to my, Honorable Minister for, ICT, that is, digital economy. This question is, how is government leveraging digital technology and innovation to empower young people in education, business, and public service? When I look at here in education, because most of whom, like myself, I am very late, to choose, digital, that is ICT as a course or as a passionate, area that I want to develop on. Why? Because at the time, computers, these technology things are not very much common in our schools. So what are these, plans to make so that youths, at their early stage, they are aware of technology and they are passionate, to choose the course and then move the country higher as far as, digital is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. I think those questions will be directed. I think both questions can be addressed by the Honorable Minister. Thank you.
Yeah.
And please just keep it snappy.
Yeah, there's another one here, Modu Sabali.
Good afternoon. I don't have a question, I have a comment as a youth. I think, I'm very serious, by the way. The area of digital economy is one area where the Gambia has a comparative advantage. But at the same time, we are confronted by serious challenges. And more often than not, our policies and intervention are targeted at the mainstream youths. But from my experience working with young people, a lot of these out of the mainstream youth school dropouts are exceptionally talented in ICT. I have picked up dropouts and made them global stars, literally. Ba Ibrahim Cham is now working with the BBC. MJ, I picked him up from the streets of Bakau to become my IT manager at Observer. I think we need to look at that. That's 1. 2, digital sovereignty. We are hearing about Starlink and all these things. All that glitters is not gold. Gambia is a small country. That is unique. We can have 1,001 arguments to get ourselves out of these global behemoths. Switzerland, I understand, have been standing alone, getting out of these international organizations for long. You know one advantage that Gambia has, and partly that's why we have this infrastructure revolution, because we have our own sovereign, unique central bank. That is a treasure. Let us not sell our digital sovereignty. I'm speaking on behalf of us, the youths. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Savali. So I'll just
Can we have 2 from this side and then?
No, Aliu, I am the one steering the wheel here.
All right.
Allow me to give you the platform, please. Thank you. So we'll just take 3 more, because time might not be on our side. I'll take a she. I'm a bit biased. Do you have a she somewhere? Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Madam MC, for giving me the opportunity. And I am Binta Jiba. I'm here on behalf of NYC. So I will want to also align myself to the discussion that is going on, from the minister to the stakeholders that are in the panel. So we all know digitalization is something that is cross-cutting. So all sectors, we need to have digitalization to move, because the world is a world of technology today. And Gambia should not also be left behind. So I want to also make a recommendation. Like one of the panelists have mentioned that digitalization is also about empowerment. And empowerment cannot be achieved without investing in the young people, especially from an early stage. So I would want to recommend that the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education also incorporate digital literacy in their curriculum, so that our young ones can learn at the early stage, like the way they learn all the other subjects. Some of these subjects are just theoretical, but we need something practical, something that they can use in the future, in life, to also build themselves. So harnessing human capital is all about empowering people. So that is what I have for you. Thank you.
She actually noted a very important point. I'll take an example of myself. When I was doing my first degree, in my first semester, I was doing ICT. It is one subject that actually got me a lower grade at the university, because even Excel I couldn't do. To an extent, during the exam, and I had to call on the ICT lecturer that I don't know what I'm doing. She was like, I said, Lord Defrek Bahna. So because I was not actually introduced to technology at the very grassroots, so when I got to university, I couldn't actually do. But now I understand that it is needed, and I'm actually building myself to it. So I think your point is noted. Aliu, let's hear from your side.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Madam. I also want to stand on existing protocols. My name is Wuli Mustafa Diba. I am the new Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Youth and Sports. And Honorable Minister, you really inspired me. I thought I'm done with schooling, but I think I have to go back and do some schooling more. Because you've talked about a vision that I want to associate myself with that vision. And I also believe this is the way forward. And I hope this vision will be communicated across the whole country so that the young people know this is what the vision we have the country, and everybody understands. When we believe in this vision, we can do it together. My contribution is when we speak about digitalization in harnessing resource potential for this country, for inclusive prosperity, we must be very clear about what we mean. We are not speaking about imported models, like Honorable Sabali was just referring to, or externally packaged solutions. We as a country, we are speaking about a Gambian design systems that reflect our social realities, our economic structure, and our cultural strengths. Solutions that are rooted in our communities, aligned with our labor market, and owned by our young people. Inclusive prosperity, I hope, will not happen with young people, but it must happen with the young people. This is not something we want to do for the young people. We want the young people to take ownership of it, and I think that's very important. My question is, what role should the private sector play? Because if your ministry is doing all this, I don't think at some point you want to bring the private sector on board so that we move together. How do we measure inclusive prosperity? That's my question. Inclusive prosperity is not a social favor. For me, I think it's an economic strategy. If we get it right, it grows our GDP, strengthens our stability, and secures our future. Inclusive prosperity will not happen for young people. It must be built with them, led by them, and sustained by them, and sustained by systems that outlive our personalities. With that, I want to really thank you, Honorable Minister. I want you to share this vision. I think this is a way forward for the country, a young country like ours. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, you can have another one from your end, and I'll shift over to this. We just take two more from this side.
All right, I have one at the back here.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. And my name is Ibrahim Achun. I'm a representative of Knox. First, I want to commend the minister for a lot of expansion and development that he mentioned. What I want to ask is, what are the plans to expand digital literacy in tertiary education, especially technological development? For the tools, most of the materials we talked about in terms of access, like the moderator did mention, access to those tools, you have them in exams. How can we ensure that they are advanced at tertiary institutions so that we will be able to learn about them at a very early time? The other one, we will want the minister to shed light on the Starlink issue, as our youth president talked about. There is a lot of noise on it in social media. We want to understand, as young people, is our future safe? Do we have our sovereignty intact? These are issues we will really be interested on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we'll just take one last question from this end, Khadijatu. So maybe some of the other questions we can actually discuss on them during our breakout sessions for lunch, please. And then we'll invite the Honorable Minister to respond to the questions. Honorable Minister, yes.
All right. Good afternoon. I am Adam Anjay, and my question here is regarding digitalization. When we talk about digitalization, I think we want to hear the cost of internet in the Gambia. When we talk about digitalization, we need the affordability for people to access it. So we have heard so many. It is important we recognize that, because many young people now are interested in digitalization, in the internet, but can they afford the cost of internet? That is very important. The minister have mentioned so many development and areas that the government is intervening in terms of to digitalize, the government, services. But if this digitalization is there and then we cannot access it, having the cost of it, I think it's a concern, and I think I want the government to intervene on that to make sure that it is affordable for the Gambian people. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Now I'll hand the baton over to the Honorable Minister to respond to these questions, if it can be a bit snappy. Yes.
Thank you for the chest-pounding questions. And I understand, it's understandable. But let me start with the last question on the issue of cost. When we are all out there, what we have in our hands, we measure and give it a value. Sometimes we call that value very expensive. It's costly. But let's remember, I mentioned here factors of production. How do you get that access? There are stakeholders that have invested, and they expect some returns on their investment. But the simple answer is this: we are working to ensure that we have a cheaper internet access for the people of this country. And remember, I said 17 years ago, we could have done a lot differently. But how many operators do we have? They have all invested a lot of money, and they are paying license fees and many things. They factor all this in their delivery of services. But we are working effectively on that. And I can assure you, gentlemen, be rest assured that before 2026, which is very important to us, we will make sure that you will see some impact. Now, there is also the question on private sector role for inclusive prosperity. That's a very, very important question. But the answer is short. When I came in, I looked at who are the operators, the stakeholders. Who are they? Who owns them? They are all Gambian companies, by the way. But those companies you see, who owns them? Who are the stakeholders? Are we in there? So I said, whatever we do for this sector now, it must be Gambianized. That's the principle. They can talk, and talks will be there. But just get your focus right, and that's what we have as a government. And a clear example of that is, if we want to give away any company whatsoever, let's look at ourselves as Gambians. Let the content be local content. It's very important, because then that you control the economy. You have it, it stays. For that reason, we are encouraging public-private partnership. We are giving opportunities to the Gambian companies, wherever you come from, regardless of whatsoever. So long as you're a company in this country and you're owned by Gambians, we are ready to promote you more. We don't want to be discriminatory. But we are observing the principle of discrimination based on an intelligible difference here. That is not a bad discrimination. So to that question, I answer to say, PPP, we are promoting it. Minister of Finance, how I wish he was here, he would tell you what they are doing at the PPP level. Now, on digital literacy question, the answer is simple. We have what we call the TEE, Technology Enhanced Education Strategy, using ICTs. If you go to our websites, you will see what we are doing there. In order to make sure that from day one, from primary, basic, secondary to the higher level, advanced level, what is the strategy? That's already there in place. And access to the tools, cost of ownership of the tools you are using for that access. The government is reviewing what can we do. What form of taxes should now be lifted on some of those tools so that we have those right access? These are things that are going to be surprising to a number of you, but the strategic documents are already there adopted. For the cross-cutting nature, that it must be cross-cutting. Within our ministry alone, today I can tell you, we have a strategy for agriculture through ICTs, strategy for health through ICTs, women and youth empowerment through ICTs. And these are key. Those strategic documents are there with outlined goals that we are gradually pushing through. But as I said before, the concept of gradualism is such that we don't want to be really constrained by the pace that is there. Now, on the issue of TVET, education and employment, some time ago, how I wish you had listened to the, maybe if you had the opportunity of listening to the higher education minister. How many TVET stations are we building as a government? Today you go to Wasu, just by Kuntauru, on the highway. That structure there, it will surprise a good number of the youth. Please, I advise you to go there. And many other parts of this country. We are building them to make sure that, like we said, the Germans got it right. And remember I said, no more government to say government must provide employment, but government must facilitate. Private sector should also facilitate, but the individual itself should facilitate. This is what the Germans have done, and they have got it right. Therein, it is not about the PhD or the masters or whatever you have. It is that competence you have, the skill. They look at their population and give them all the skills. They are the best engineers in the world today. So they say. I don't have the full statistics, but that's what they say. And they have some of the best, almost in every sphere of human activity, economic activity. So we're looking at that. The TVET system we are bringing into this country is a system that will be responsive to our needs for the next 10 years. That's an assurance I'm giving you. And lastly, on the dropped out issues and digital sovereignty. See, those of you who may remember, when I came in first, I called all Gambian software developers, young and old, application developers, into one particular hall, and I said to them, we are not saying no to outside software developers. We are not saying no to outside application developers. But we should only be able to bring them on board if you cannot do what we expect you to do for us. And we've already started that dialogue with them. That is something in the progressing. And in fact, for example, we have what you call the IFMIS system. You all know IFMIS system, how developed it in this country. And then a country like Rwanda came to learn from us here. I took somebody from here to Rwanda to teach them and to show them how to establish it through government, whatever, intergovernment dialogue. And Rwanda did it. Our IFMIS system needs some upgrades. And Rwanda is proposing that they could do it at some millions of dollars. And I simply say, no, it's not possible. We are now going to be doing it here locally, and I can assure you we can do it. So, for us in technology, there is no dropout. Like Honorable Sabali said, just give them the opportunity, they will do it, and we are giving them that opportunity. Lastly, on digital sovereignty, please, digital sovereignty, I can tell you, in simple language and in simple answer. Some specific things raised, I would not have any answers for them for now. You will see the answers real time. But I can assure you and I can tell you, the president of this country, His Excellency Adam Barrow, understands the concept of digital sovereignty, and he knows what it entails. And that's something he will never sacrifice, because that's why we are all going. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. I think the Honorable Minister kind of feels that I enjoy listening to him. When he says finally, you'll hear again in conclusion, lastly, and all of those things. So but nonetheless, a round of applause to the Honorable Minister and the panelists here as they move back to their seats, please. Thank you. Now, because we are way behind time, I would like to invite the next session of panelists, where the former Minister of Works, Honorable Bailamin Job, who is the founder of GAMWorks, will actually lead the discussions on the theme partnership in harnessing the Gambia's human capital and infrastructural resources for an inclusive leap to prosperity. So with the stakeholders' reflections on the topic as well is Mrs. Emily Sarr and Magistrate Mohamed Krubali from the Gambia Federation of Persons with Disability. Honorable Minister, Honorable Bailamin Job, please, you can join us on the podium. Mrs. Emily Sarr, yes, and Magistrate Mohamed Krubali from the GFD. Looks like he's not available, yes. And Honorable Minister, you can take the podium.
I have good morning here, but I think it's good afternoon, actually. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure and much appreciation to be invited to this national dialogue on harnessing human capital and infrastructure assets, which is one of the events of the upcoming 61st anniversary of independence. Since my time is limited, I will try to expedite my contribution. So let me start from the beginning by rewinding back to 18 February 1965 and by highlighting the following weaknesses with our human capital and infrastructure assets at the time. And I'm sure for some of you who are old enough, who may have been present, will know about this situation I'm going to describe. Our total population then was only 340,000 Gambians, 340. And our annual revenue for those from the Ministry of Finance, it was only $6.5 million at the time. Our human resources, aside our farmers then, we had one civil engineer in this country, one dentist, 6 cabinet members, and 4-man foreign service ministry. 4-man, there were 4 of them. And when it comes to roads, we had only 30 kilometers of tarred roads, 30 kilometers. No proper roads beyond Brikama, just laterite and dirt roads. And the entire North Bank Road used to be shut every rainy season. No vehicles plying. And guess what? We had only taxi cabs in this country and 3 minibuses. And I hope you believe this. We had one seaport which was called the Government Wharf. one riverboat, which was called the Lady Ride, one airport with one airstrip, no fitting parliament building or national building, National Assembly building, one bank. I don't know if some of you will remember, there was only one bank, and 10 primary schools countrywide, 10 of them. 3 high schools, Gambia High School, St. Augustine's, and Armitage. That's it. Or that was it. One technical school and one bookstore, the Methodist bookstore. One fire station at Halfdye in Bathurst, in Banjul, one fire station. And 2 hospitals. The RVH, now called Francis Hospital, and Bansang Hospital. And one pharmacy, Oldfields, they used to call it. And one radio station that used to broadcast only 3 hours per day. And the coverage was just Banjul and some parts of the greater Banjul area. And in fact, in 1967, 2 years after independence, one American journalist named Buckley Rice visited the Gambia, and after which he wrote a book called Enter Gambia, the birth of an improbable nation, that we were not possible as a nation, that is. So, I am saying all this because I'm an optimist. If we move forward today, 6 decades after independence, the following now prevails. We have a population of about 2.4 million, according to the 2024 census. We now have a total annual revenue of above $320 million. Now compare it to the 6 we started with, okay? And we have now 23 cabinet members instead of 6. We have a foreign service now of 28 foreign missions, embassies and consulates. And we have a fitting National Assembly building for 58 National Assembly members. We have now more than 12 hotels. There were just 1 hotel before. 12. An airport equipped with international standards since 1997, with 3,600 meters of runway and a fitting terminal building. We have a bigger port instead of the government wharf we used to have. And we have now 12 banks instead of 1 bank. There are now 12. And we have 1,034 schools countrywide. $19 bookstores now. And we have 10 fire stations. We used to have 1. And this is countrywide. We now have 4 referral hospitals, 8 main health centers, and 16 smaller centers, and more than 200 mobile clinic units. We now have 13 pharmacies only in the Greater Banjul area. We used to have one, but only in the Greater Banjul area. Now we have 13. And we have 10 to 15 dentists, 10 to 15 estimate. And we have at least 14 or so civil engineering and architectural firms. When it comes to roads, we have identified 4,000 kilometers of primary, secondary, urban, and rural roads network. The primary roads is about 1,000 kilometers. And we have paved already about 800 kilometers of it. That's the primary. And I'm not talking just the North Bank Road to Farafenye, but now we have a North Bank Road paved from Bara to Pasemas. I don't know whether any of you know Pasemas, but it's at the end of the country. And the 500 kilometers of secondary roads, mainly gravel before, now either they are completed or under construction, like the Hakalang Road, which was inaugurated, I think, last year. We have the Salom, Kiang, and Kabada. How many of you know where Kabada is? I see only 2 hands. Or 3. There. For the 200 kilometers of urban roads confined to the Banjul and the West Coast region, they have been addressed on the OIC project or other funding means. I mean, as a general description, in this country, we have 35 kilometers per every 100 square kilometer of this country, which is a density that provides connectivity and accessibility above the average in the sub-Saharan countries. We are above average. We now have, you know, we used to have one radio station. We now have 20 radio stations. Only one is state-owned. We have 5 TV channels, not only radio, but 5 TV channels. 4 are privately owned. We have at least 4 daily newspapers we didn't have before, any. Publishing 5 times a week. And we have a large fleet of taxi cabs now, not 20. And minivans. And buses plying in urban areas and in the country, everywhere. And lastly, if I may say, we have a fitting National Assembly building inaugurated since 2014. And we have this building you are in now, a conference center. We are not talking about anything like this. So, at least, we have come a long way from where we started. And we have to agree to that. And especially for those of you who are old enough to know this. That's true. She is our wife, the same age group. Yeah. So, given this noted journey that this country had undertaken for these 6 decades, please allow me to narrate a bit of my experiences, of the lessons I have learned about the infrastructure sector. While I was the Director General of GAMWorks for 8 years, and while I was a minister of the Ministry of Transport, Works and Infrastructure for 5 years. Not to mention, while as a private consultant in few other projects and studies. GAMWorks was between 1993 and 2001 when I was there. It's still there. GAMWorks was founded as a development agency funded by the World Bank and government of the Gambia to deliver rapidly infrastructure assets, and in the process to create employment and to enable the building of local capacity in the construction industry. Now, because we had very clear operating procedures and standards, the agency was able to deliver about 35 to 40 projects per year. It came out to be about 300 projects in 8 years. I believe one of the main reasons of that good performance and the transparency of the agency, aside the clear procedures and standards, was because of the staffs were well paid. They were well paid. That was the magic of GAMWorks at the time. The other experience GAMWorks, which I still remember, and was a study on the construction industry for infrastructure. It was conducted in 1999 using a joint venture of international and local consultants. Now, these were the findings then. The study showed that 80 to 90% of total investments per year in this country were on buildings and civil works, on infrastructure. 80 to 90% of what we invest on a yearly basis in this country. There were other investments, but the main investments were related to construction in one way or the other. That was number one. Number two, the study also found that the local construction industry, contracts and consultants combined, only accessed less than 5% of the noted investment transactions at that time. That we were on the sidelines, the local industry. Number three, that the local construction industry was very disorganized and mostly informal. That's the local one. And number four, that the local banks in this country were not supportive and were mostly causing bankruptcy of local contractors in one way or the other, because sometimes receiving their payment took time when they were already issued with cash advancements from these banks. And before they can get those advances, they usually used to tender collaterals, which sometimes they can never recover again. And the fifth thing we found out, that mostly the local consultants were working in silos, were not open to joint ventures, and therefore could not lead big or complex projects. They don't want to come together. In fact, the most individualistic people in this country are educated. They cannot cooperate. They are always arguing, and each feeling very big. They cannot talk to each other. both at the individual level, also as companies. And the sixth thing they found out, lastly, that externally funded projects did not favor the local industry. And most of our projects were being externally funded. But they come with their documents and stipulating that they have to bring external consultants and even hire contractors from the outside. The thing I remember that the GANWorks agency tried to solve some of these problems. They even, facilitated the creation of two associations. One was called GACON, which was the Gambia Association of Contractors, and the other was the Gambia Association of Consultants. But I cannot say whether these two associations are still existing or functioning, which comes to my previous statement that our professionals in this country are very proud people who have not decided to cooperate and work with each other. Well, with regards to the Ministry of Transport, which I was there from 2017 to 2022. As the new minister in 2017, the first surprising experience I had at the time, which is still memorable, was receiving a copy of a presidential executive order at the time, addressed to the following state-owned enterprises, that is the Gambia Ports Authority, the Gambia Maritime Association, the Gambia Civil Association, and the National Road Association, NRA, asking them to move from his office, the office of the president, all of them, or under the office of the president, to the Ministry of Transport, Works, and Infrastructure, where they belong. So it means at that time, all these technical ministries were under the office of the president. And that was one of his first orders, to kick them out. Implementing that order was a big challenge at the time. But a bigger and time-consuming challenge was transforming the ministry from a political bureau into a veritable technical institution by having necessary technical operating procedures and standards and having the necessary equipment. There were a few desktops and laptops around then, and there was no network, minister, for you to learn. The whole ministry had no network. They were just standalones and laptops and all that. So having a network became a priority. Then we started doing proper planning, scheduling, evaluating projects, and having regular meetings, not only within the ministry, but with the state-owned enterprises, which soon had positive impact on performance. Now, I'll tell you something about meetings which I've learned, not only locally here, but working in the international. Somebody did study and arrive at a conclusion that when you are engaged in any project, the success of that project depends on how many meetings you had. Empirically established. That the more meetings you have, the more interactions you have as a group, ensures the success of that project. And that's what we were having. Now, because, as you said, my time, let me just conclude very quickly. By way of concluding, let me state that we face challenges. We still face challenges in human capacity and in infrastructure assets. We continue to have infrastructure deficits in power supply, in transportation, water supply, including irrigations as mentioned by the regional dialogue, telecommunication and digital infrastructure, which the minister has already elaborated in education and health facilities. We must address the deficits to meet our development needs and for prosperity. Given our continuously increasing population, now 2.4 million, and given the rising expectations of our young population, who are in the majority, 65% I learned today, and mainly living in the urban areas. My proposals are as follows. One, we must identify, quantify, and plan over a period to address the infrastructure deficits in all sectors and in a coordinated manner. I hope this is captured during the discussions and the reports of this forum. The second one is one that I forced myself to bring up. We all know that the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs is one of the most struggling ministries in this country, and in fact in all other countries, because of their difficulty or their difficult role in managing national annual budgets of expenditures in all sectors. Given this responsibility, I totally agree with their efforts to increase local income generation strategies through the GRA, for example, not only to be able to fund public sector operations, but also to fund the development projects. This strategy has resulted already into implementation of the Banjul project, the roads project in Hakalang, Keangkou, Jimbala, Kabada. It's their efforts. Local funds funded these projects. However, in my opinion, I totally disagree with one of the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs' recent income generating strategies, which involves devolving or leasing out vital national infrastructure assets, as they did with the Senegambia and the ports, Gambia ports. I believe there can be no private enterprise, for example, and much less a country which can be viable or have prosperity by leasing out or losing control of vital national infrastructure assets. I hope this forum will examine this strategy closely and deliberate frankly on its merits or drawbacks. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. You can still have a seat. Standing behind the former Minister, I know it was a bit intimidating behind him, but I wasn't even at some point listening to him. I was looking at the paper, how far he's gone in making his deliberations, but sorry. Now we've heard from him. He has actually taken us down memory lane as to what existed in terms of infrastructure before, the efforts that have been there, that are actually there, but also in terms of what needs to be done for recommendation. I'll invite Mrs. Emilisa to actually take us through as a reflection on the aspect of partnership based on what the Honorable Minister has actually mentioned. Please, ma'am. Okay, sure, you can.
Well, he's really taking us down through memory lane. The last time someone made that, what is this, reflection going through history, he ended with a question. And this was in India. The old man looked at the gathering and said, okay, now tell me, if this is not development, then what is development? After taking them through, history. Okay. I'm here on behalf of the Women's Advocacy Group. You have already introduced me, Honorable Chair. Let me observe or salute the dignitaries, the excellencies here present, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I don't want to begin without expressing gratitude, because we are indeed very grateful that we were invited to offer our reflections on this topic, which is harnessing the Gambia's human capital and infrastructure resources for an inclusive leap to prosperity. And because of the work we are engaged in, we really feel it's an honor of a lifetime, and we want to express our gratitude. I in particular, on behalf of the WBAG. Now, as we commemorate 60 years of independence, we are reminded that our nation's true wealth lies in its people. Our greatest asset is our human capital, the resilience, talent, and enterprise of Gambians. An inclusive leap to prosperity requires that we harness this potential deliberately. Deliberately, I had that word coming from you. Deliberately, yeah, intentionally. No country achieves sustained growth when part of its productive population remains underutilized. Across the Gambia, women in business contribute meaningfully to local markets and national value chains. They create employment, stabilize households, and sustain communities. Yet they remain constrained from scaling and competing fully in higher levels of opportunity. The Women's Business Advocacy Group was established to help address this gap, working collaboratively with government, private sectors, and development partners to promote supplier diversity and strengthen inclusive procurement systems. We are grateful for the constructive partnerships we have enjoyed with the International Trade Center, the United Nations Development Programme, the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Welfare, the Gambia Public Procurement Authority, that's the GPPA, the Gambia Investment and Export Promotion Agency, and the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the GCCI, which serves as host to the association during these formative years. What began as a small initiative under GCCI has grown to a respectable platform that has contributed meaningfully to national dialogue and policy development, including our collective role in shaping the draft gender-responsive procurement policy now being advanced to the Ministry of Gender. While our work addresses barriers across the broader market ecosystems, we have placed particular strategic focus on public procurement as a high-impact lever for inclusion and enterprise growth. Public procurement is not merely administrative. It is part of our national institutional infrastructure that directs public investment, shapes markets, and determines who participate in structured growth. This is why we are so preoccupied with it. The GPPA Act 2022, notably Section 33 on domestic preference, represents meaningful progress in promoting local participation. Building on this foundation, continued engagement around structured inclusion benchmarks for women and underrepresented groups, youth and persons with disability, represents a constructive next step in broadening participation. And let me tell you, most of our advocacy energies and stresses have been around this benchmark. Our initial advocacy referenced a 30% benchmark in line with international inclusion frameworks. Through constructive dialogue and technical consultation, a phased implementation model has emerged, establishing realistic entry points today while creating a pathway for expanded participation as enterprise capacity and market readiness continue to grow. And as we speak, that target, which can't be 30%, from our discussion, has to be a starting target, has been, the core of our arguments and our debates. Importantly, inclusion does not lower standards. During the COVID period, when women were encouraged to participate in supply chains, they formed consortia to meet volume requirements, complied fully with procurement rules, and delivered reliably. Standards remain unchanged. What shifted was access, and performance followed. This is not preference. It's about unlocking productive capacity, deepening competition, and strengthening our national economic foundations. Furthermore, the National Development Plan, UUR 23 to 27, explicitly recognizes structured measures in public procurement under the empowerment and social inclusion pillar as key enablers of economic empowerment. WBAG's advocacy is therefore not parallel to national reform. It is directly aligned with the support of the government as articulated in the NDP, and therefore supports government's policy direction. Alongside procurement reform, we recognize that in today's economy, market access increasingly expands into digital platforms. More women and youths are registering businesses online and engaging in e-commerce to reach regional and global markets. Through partnership with the Gambia Women's Chamber of Commerce, we support enterprise readiness so that women-owned businesses are equipped to compete effectively, whether in structured procurement systems or evolving digital marketplace. As we look ahead, let us harness our human capital and strengthen the national institutional infrastructure that enables enterprise to thrive so that our inclusive leap to prosperity is deliberate, structured, and sustained, and no productive potential is left untapped. WBAG has made its recommendation. We hope that the Gambian people and the government will hear us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Emily Sarr from the Women Business Advisory Group. At this juncture, I'll throw back the mic to the audience for your contributions on the topic, which states partnership in harnessing the Gambia's human capital and infrastructural resources for an inclusive leap to prosperity. So now these contributions are the only one between us and lunch. Yes, we can. The faster we are able to do it, the faster we could go for lunch. Yes. Ali, yes.
Yeah, there's one here, PS.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Mort Seka, and my question is directed to Doyen Job. Doyen, I know we've been, we are very proud of your contribution in the sector, but I also see a gap that I would want to pick your brain on, and this is the underutilization of the River Gambia. What is your advice on this? We are leaving a substantial and a very important area in the development of this country, and it looks like it has been ignored for some time. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have another one? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I want to add my voice to P.S. Seka's commendation of Bailamin. Say it's one of the finest presentations I've ever heard. Thank you for teaching us. And indeed, we need to be taught. And I'm glad that we have a platform like this, because me and my youths, back then when we had symposia, we invited the Dr. Sajatars, the Halifa Salas, Badara Jus, but now we invite ourselves to talk to ourselves. And definitely I think there is room to listen to the elderly. So thank you for that flashback. Regarding the key theme here, harnessing human capital infrastructure. We know this government in particular has invested in an unprecedented way in generating new infrastructure. How much jobs were created? I know it's not as much as we would want to. Everybody has complained about youth unemployment. And one of the key factors is our attitude as young people. What is your advice? What are the solutions? I know we have young people coming from Benin to come and work here. What is the solution? Maybe you have a magic wand. On your very bold criticism of the asset licensure, I think it's quite interesting. I used to hold similar views when I was in the opposition. Now it's not my business to criticize government. I hope I can be honest. But, and this is a big but, we know the port issue, for instance. Not much was invested, but again, back to attitude. I'm not receiving any calls from the diaspora again, telling me my goods are in a container waiting. You know better than me the ERP and the divestiture programs. What was the main issue, if you ask me? Again, attitude. This whole thing of what belongs to everybody, belonging to nobody. Just throwing some thoughts out there, but thank you again for a brilliant presentation.
Thank you. Can we have two more? Yes, there is one behind there. You can make it snappy before the Secundas will come for you.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Alhaji Bafode Jabi, Council of Elders, KM. Be kontonna Allah kibari nyimma mi aliya nati kabiran kul kuma seta damin kana bula bila waya itandi ko Gambia fuloda la jambale to woto nte mbali jeyla la do ko la bari lefta ngam murudin le kan domandi pour ye nyimmo yale Gambia stati dami anin kana bula bila kene bale keta woto dindingol ye song ye lay fanna ko fen natata tara Gambia la samalomo ni sonda abe kenola la katambi nyi sanji taworo nin kilongo moli kato minke wo alfal milio kata nyimma ke mbe jeyla mbetendola bar say atuta dindingol lelbulu aliye song ale gema la bankola ko altelle tamu adali ba sambanola le aldia nyami Gambe sula de fenfenal ba ke nolale wo total tellel bulu man sakundansi min fono wolmo e fanaliye bulo dun dinnol koto dami yalon ko dinnol take nole faye ba kata kanne de bare hanbi suka borono nyawnye ka dal dafa busola be man sakunda fana dani lola bari do ko warama dinnol lomo de nga konyu ko bula nga sonde biji bula nga ñim programme jama bula nga ñaatilim na banko do ko wala woten na banko asamba ñaato de ni sontan gemuta moman intelligent katambia Gambia din Gambia ko la na banko do ya da bar Gambia din intelligentale bar fo nga song nga do ko ke nga gemun na banko la kanan na mire ala mo la banko kan fen nyaabe wala banko ka bebe na janne ni sonta ni sonta ni nga amuta isi kuke no molle be wulla nang be mil employé la na banko kanjang bar fo nga sonne de adu kebal woliye takele kandu nyile min fo Gambia start dami nyina history akumata bage mol ka alla moy yalo Gambia start min tole anim bimbe dami woto ala min dinna nin altali sonta molle be bola de la bankol kay minala wol ba kan ne ko ba be mulobe la re nyoka na wala ba be do ku kay ba